Welcome to another Figuring Out Japan video. We sell all the coolest Japanese collectibles and figurines straight out of Japan, and you can find out more details about us in the description of this video, including our Facebook page and our online store. So in this video I'm talking about something that I know a lot of collectors feel very passionate about, and that is what some people may call defects with figures. When in reality they're imperfections. Now I know some people may wonder what is the difference between a defect and an imperfection. A defect is when something is fundamentally wrong with an item. It can't serve the purpose that it's supposed to do. So to use a simple example, you might have a nut that you need to screw into a bolt. If the nut or the bolt is not correctly threaded, or it's too big or it's too small, then it's not going to be able to fasten and sort of lock in whatever it's supposed to do. In that instance, it's defective. And the manufacturer, they will test these things in the factory before they go out to market, and they'll make sure if is there anything outside of their specified range of size, because at a really small level they are going to vary in size. Then if it's outside of that range, then they won't put it to market. So how does that apply with figures? Well, I recently saw online somebody post pictures of a really expensive item. It wasn't Banpresto, but it was another Dragon Ball Z figure, and it had a base and it had these energy waves that connected into the base, and one of the connecting energy waves was too big. It was physically, the connecting piece was too wide and it didn't actually fit in. That's defective because, you know, the item can't be displayed as it's supposed to. That's different to an imperfection where, you know, you're talking about things like the thickness of the paint, or you're talking about, you know, minute, you know, imperfections that you can see, like scratches or that sort of thing. So I'm going to use an example here in this video of two Frieza Banpresto World Figure Colosseum figures. Now from a distance, these figures look identical and they look fine. And that's important to note as well, because often, you know, people open a figure, they check it out, they're excited to get it, they have a, you know, good close-up look of it, and that's often when you do notice these imperfections, and some people really worry about it. But the reality is that when you have it sitting on your shelf and you're sort of 20 or 30 centimeters away from it, so maybe like 10 inches away from it, you're not going to realize or see these imperfections. But let's actually have a really close look at these two figures. So I'll start with the right one here. Now, if you have a look at this part here, I know a lot of these are going to be very hard to show in the camera, so I apologize in advance if you can't see them very clearly. But you can see here there's some sort of like clear, adhesive, gluey type thing that's on the figure, whereas the other one doesn't have that, as I'll show you in a moment. If we then have a look underneath the figure, you can see that there's an imperfection around here where the leg meets his black pants, and then again on the underside you can see there's a, I know it's going out of focus, we can see this sort of dot, this colored dot on the left leg. If we then also have a look at the back of the figure, again I'll try and get this in focus, you can see there's this sort of white mark here where the tail piece connects in. So there's a few imperfections there already that we have noticed. Then also if you have a look at the armor, you'll see, I really need to get this into focus, but there's like a tiny sort of light brown mark where the dark brown of the armor actually connects to the white. Just there you can see it. So just small imperfections with the figure. Now if I have a look at the left one here, you can see that it doesn't have any of those imperfections that I showed you in the first figure. So from that we can sort of conclude that, you know, they are imperfections. Then, you know, there isn't supposed to be a brown dot there. There's not supposed to be a white mark on the back here. But, you know, they are still, I mean, you can still display the figure fine. It's not a defect, it's an imperfection. Now, does that mean that this figure is perfect? Well, if we have a look here, we can see on the armor plate that there's like an extra white line just here, this small sort of little white line that wasn't on the other one that we had. Then you can also see again that there are these sort of light brown marks, or not marks, but parts where the dark brown paint doesn't quite meet the white paint that we also saw in the first figure. But on this one, it actually, on the front, I showed you the side, it does pretty much go right to the edge. If you have a look at this one, it doesn't quite, you know, you can see it a bit more prevalently where there is a gap in the paint. Then if we also have a look at the headpiece, there is a white scratch. In fact, there's actually a couple of scratches. There's a tiny little one here, and then there's another one here. Now you may say, oh well, that happened when the item was being transported or whatever. Well, when these actually come from the factory, they come in this bubble wrap that goes around the entire top half of the figure, which is then inside a plastic bag, so it's not going to rub against any other material, which is then inside a big thick cardboard, which is then inside a box. And then when we send it out to the customer, of course we, you know, wrap it in bubble wrap and all that sort of stuff. So it's fair to conclude that, you know, those imperfections and that scratch would have occurred at the point of manufacturing. Now there's also another thing that again, I'm sure people wouldn't recognize or realize unless I point it out, but even when we look at the scouters, if you actually have a look, this scouter, again, it's very, very hard to show, but this scouter is touching the figure. It's actually, you can see there the edge of the scouter, if I get my little pointer again, is actually touching the white part of his face. Again, if I show it around this way, it goes right to his sort of eye. I know he doesn't have eyebrows, but of his armor here. Whereas if we have a look at this one, you can actually see that there is a clear gap. You can see with the background there. She's better if I show it dark. No, the lighter is better. So you can see there's a clear gap between the two. And again, you can see it from this angle here. There's a gap between the scouter. So which one's right? Which one's wrong? I mean, I think if you look at Frieza in the series, the scouter isn't actually touching him at that point. And yet, when you have a look at the box, the scouter does seem to completely conceal or cover the left eye. So if you actually take that into consideration, the scouter that was sticking out from the face a little bit, you can actually see. So you might say, well, I prefer the one that sticks out from the face, but if you look at least what the box suggests, you can see this one doesn't quite cover his entire left eye. So that would suggest that the imperfection is the one that actually has the gap with the scouter that sticks out more. Really, really nitpicky stuff, you know. But no two figures are going to be exactly identical and exactly with no perfections. Now I know there are going to be people watching this video and almost proudly saying, yeah, but that's not good enough for me. I take pride in my collection, and you know, I that's not acceptable for me, and I wouldn't be happy with either of these. You could open 1,000 of these figures and you would be able to find some kind of imperfection. The perfect, exact figure just does not exist on this level when you really start to look closely. Now, if you don't believe me, let's actually have a look at the box. Like, even for their commercial or their marketing material, you can see here that even on the figure on the box, you know, there's sort of this white part on the body armor here. Even on the one on the box, you can see again the same markings that I showed before with the light brown just between where the paint doesn't quite mix. Again here in the corner. And then even we can see here on the head, there's some sort of imperfection there just around here. So if they're not going to have the exactly perfect figure even on the box, then it just simply doesn't exist. And if you really care on that level, then honestly you're better off not buying figures at all. And this is not just Banpresto. So it's not like the McDonald's approach where they have this perfect hamburger and then when you go in store you get something that looks like crap. I mean, they're showing you even on the box what it actually that, you know, that those sort of imperfections still exist. But I'd love to know your thoughts. Please leave a comment and stay tuned for more great content about Japanese figures and collectibles.